Why is the faith of so many people failing? This is why. Because they're taking away their focus from God, the one who makes the heavens and the earth, and the one who holds our life in his hand, and they're putting their focus on the threat. They're putting their focus on the lie of the devil. And don't feel too bad, because you're not too much different than this mighty man of God called Elijah. As a matter of fact, he was so mighty that when Jesus was on the Mount of Transfiguration, two key biblical figures appeared next to Jesus before his crucifixion on the Transfiguration Mountain. It was Moses. Why Moses? Because Moses was the representation of the law. And the second prophet is the one that I want to talk about today. The second prophet was Elijah. Elijah was there because Moses represented the law, and Elijah was there because Elijah was representing the prophets. In other words, the law and the prophets from the Old Testament, when Jesus was on the Mount of Transfiguration, the law and the prophets were always pointing to him, always pointing to Jesus and what he was going to do on the cross. That is why on the Transfiguration Mountain, Moses and Elijah appeared next to Jesus, a representation of the law and of the prophets, always foreshadowing Jesus and what he was going to do for you and for me on the cross. But talking about this man Elijah, who was mighty, that he appeared next to Jesus, who was a faithful man of God, a loyal man of God, a courageous man of God, but he wasn't too different from you. He also ran away for his life when someone threatened him. And right after one of the biggest victories of his whole entire life, right after one of the biggest victories in the Old Testament period, it was one against 450. It was Elijah, the prophet of God, against 450 false prophets of Baal. Now, there was a very key biblical figure in this time for the negative, though, and her name was Jezebel. And just like Jezebel was alive, threatening the life of God's people thousands of years ago, Jezebel, in other words, that spirit is still alive today. The spirit of Jezebel is still threatening the life of God's people today. Now, let me tell you the purpose of Jezebel. The purpose of Jezebel is to stop you from serving God. The purpose of Jezebel is to condemn you, to accuse you. The purpose of Jezebel is to remind you of your failures and your faults. The purpose of Jezebel, she plays real dirty. The purpose of Jezebel is to just accuse you and come against you and show you all your failures, show you all your faults, so that you can become scared and uncertain, and so that your feet, which are set on Jesus Christ, the firm foundation, the rock of ages, that solid ground, so that your feet that's standing on Jesus Christ, when Jezebel's threats and accusations and her words of death come into your life, your feet will get off that solid rock that's immovable, unbreakable, unshakable, which is Jesus. She wants you, it's a spirit, I'm going to refer to her as she. She wants you to take your feet off of that solid rock and start walking in your own understanding. Because as soon as you walk in your own understanding, then the devil has the upper hand. Because as long as you're standing on Jesus Christ, the devil is defeated. The devil is nothing. He cannot do anything against you. But as soon as a person starts thinking in their own understanding and their own humanistic carnal reasoning, then the devil has the upper hand, because the devil's like a serpent and he's also like a lion seeking someone to devour. Remember, when Eve was in the garden, he tried to get her away from the plane of obeying God to the plane of reasoning. And he said, no, you won't die if you eat this fruit. As a matter of fact, you'll be like God. And as soon as he brought her down from obedience to God and brought her down to the plane of human reasoning, then she took it along and she said, well, it's pleasing to the eye, it's good for food, it'll make me wise. And she bit of the fruit and she ate, and we all know what happened after that. But that is Jezebel's goal. That is Jezebel's ambition, to scare you, to threaten you, to remind you of your failures, to remind you of your faults, to accuse you. That's the devil's job too. That's why that's her job, to accuse you, to make you run away. So let me tell you a little bit about Elijah and why his faith was failing, and why you're not too different than Elijah, and why there is light at the end of the tunnel, and why God's not mad at you. As a matter of fact, God is just waiting for you to take your eyes away from that earthly plane, to take your eyes away from that humanistic reasoning, and to put your eyes back on him and to trust in him. So Elijah has just defeated 450 prophets of Baal, and he's having a good time. He's not scared of 450 men. He's not scared at all. And he's saying, well, let's do this competition. Whoever brings down fire from heaven, that's the one that serves the true God. And he even said, y'all go first. And he let the 450 false prophets of Baal go first. And they were crying and they were yelling. And for 12 hours they were cutting themselves. And they were praying and they were trying to see if Baal would send fire from heaven. Nothing happened. Finally, Elijah said, hey, call a little louder. Maybe he's sleeping. Call a little louder. Maybe he's in the restroom. Like literally, Elijah was taunting them and making fun of them. Elijah was bold. He was very, very bold. And I want to show you how you can go from being bold to being scared. How you can go from walking in faith to walking in fear. That's something that can happen when you take your eyes away off of the Lord and when you listen to those lies of the enemy. And instead of standing on that solid rock, Jesus Christ, you start standing on own humanistic understanding, humanistic reasoning. That's the devil's playing field. That's the devil's upper hand. When you get off of trusting in the Lord and when you start thinking things in your own humanistic carnal understanding, that's when the devil can begin to lie to people. So Elijah was having a great time. He was having a fun time. He wasn't scared. Elijah said, all right, now it's my turn. And he prayed. And he said, oh, Lord, I ask you that you hear me so that everybody in Israel can see that you are the only true God. Send down fire from heaven. Immediately, God sent down fire from heaven. He had victory over those 450 false prophets of Baal. But look what happens. They destroy those false prophets. There's a revival going on. The hearts of the people of Israel are turning back to God. But Jezebel hears about this. I want you to know this without a shadow of any doubt that Jezebel will never stop coming against what you are doing. And when I say what you are doing, I mean the purposes that you have in your heart to follow God, to love God, to be faithful to God. Jezebel hates that. When anyone decides in their heart that they're going to serve God and follow God, Jezebel hates that. And she's going to come against that. And this is where we jump in. Look what happens here. 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 1 through 3, Elijah has just had faith that was able to bring fire from heaven. He had faith that was able to defeat 450 false prophets, but a threat, an accusation, a death threat is sent against him, and it makes him run away. And that's exactly what Jezebel, the devil, wants you to do. So this is why faith fails. Look what the Bible says. Ahab, which was the king, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and now he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, the messenger of threat, the messenger of fear, the messenger of anxiety, the messenger of being insecure, the messenger of not knowing what's going to happen. She sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. In other words, if by this time tomorrow you're not dead, may my gods kill me. But her gods don't have power. See, Elijah is not processing this through what he just saw. He knows that Baal doesn't have power because he just finished defeating 450 false prophets of Baal. He just finished praying and his God sent down fire from heaven. So he's not processing this through the eyes of faith. He's literally omitting God and he's just focusing on what Jezebel's saying. If by this time tomorrow you're not dead, may my gods destroy me. Her gods don't have power. If Elijah would have been thinking in faith, if Elijah would have been processing in faith, he would have said, your gods don't have power. Why do I need to be scared of you? But he's not processing things through faith. And that's why our faith fails us. Because we take our faith off of God. We stop processing things through him. And we put our eyes on the physical. We put our mind on the earthly. And we start trying to figure it out in our own understanding. And then that's where we lose. And look what Elijah does. And this is where he lost. But then remember, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Then he was afraid and he arose and ran for his life. And came to Beersheba, which belonged to Judah, and he left his servant there. He ran for his life. He abandoned the ministry. He abandoned ship. And he abandoned his disciple. He said, I'll see you later. I'm gone. Do it how you can. She threatened my life. I'm out of here. And Elijah goes, and he runs to a cave. But right there in that cave, which was about 40 days away, right there in that cave, God speaks to him. And God tells him, Elijah, what are you doing here? That cave of solitude. That cave of anxiety, that cave of depression, that cave of loneliness, that cave of fear, that cave of abandoning, that cave of letting go, that cave of quitting. God tells him, what are you doing here, Elijah? And Elijah starts to complain. Oh, it's because Jezebel, I've been so faithful to you. And look, she's trying to kill me. She's after my life. God doesn't even acknowledge that, first of all. You know why? Because those threats, the physical threats of the devil, the lies of the enemy, the fear and the anxiety that the enemy tries to tell us in our mind, God doesn't acknowledge that because that's like a lion trying to fight with a mouse. Why is a lion going to get caught up trying to fight with a mouse? It's a mouse. Don't listen to those things. Trust God. Trust the Lord. And believe me, this is things that I remind myself every day. Trust God. Don't believe those lies. Believe God. God doesn't even acknowledge those things. God tells Elijah, leave the cave, go back to Israel. You're going to anoint 2 kings, and you're going to anoint a prophet who's going to take your place after you finish your ministry. By the way, Elijah still had a ministry that was 20 years more. He thought his life was going to end, but God gave him 20 years of ministry more. That's what I want to tell you today. You might be running away. You might be abandoning the Lord. You might be backsliding. You might be going through all type of threats from the devil, accusations from the devil, condemnation from the devil. That Jezebel spirit might be trying to make you run away and leave the things of God, reminding you of your failures, reminding you of your faults. But I want to let you know that the same way that God called Elijah out that cave is the same way that today God is calling you out that cave. God does not want you any longer in that solitude. God does not want you any longer abandoning what he's called you to do. God is calling you out of that cave, and he's letting you know that he is with you. And greater is he who lives in you than the one who is in the world. Why does our faith fail us? Because we stop analyzing things through God, and we start analyzing things through our own mind frame, earthly mentality. You know, when David approached Goliath, he said, you come before me with the sword, and you come before me with the spear, and you come before me with the javelin. He said, but I come before you in the name of the Lord. Why was all the other soldiers scared to fight Goliath? Because they were looking at the physical. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's taller, he's more experienced. David didn't worry about none of that. David went up to Goliath with the stick and with the slingshot. That's it. With a staff and with a sling. And he defeated him. Why? Because he had the greatest armor of all. He said, I come before you in the name of the Lord. And I want to let you know that you also have the greatest armor of all. The Son of God, Jesus Christ, who died for you on the cross and resurrected on the 3rd day so that you can be forgiven and saved. And he's the one that's going to keep you saved. He is the greatest armor. He is the greatest covering of all. And greater is he who's with you than the one in the world who's against you. So come out that cave today. Stop analyzing things through the earthly and start believing God. Start trusting the Lord. I hope this video was a blessing to your life. If it was, do me a favor. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. I pray and I hope that these videos are always a great blessing to your life. And I post weekly videos. So if you want to be alerted for the videos that I post weekly, subscribe and turn on those notifications so that you can be alerted. And also, if you want to show your appreciation for this video or for this channel, you can do so in one of 2 ways. The first way looks something like this. It's called Super Thanks. Super Thanks is always a great blessing to my life. They're always greatly appreciated. It's down there by the share button. It looks like this. Again, any amount that you feel in your heart, they're always a great blessing. The second way that you can show your appreciation, and this is on a monthly basis, it's called channel memberships. Channel memberships is $5 a month, about $1.25 a week. And in return, you get special badges, special stickers, and access to any archive video that I post in the future. So if you want to become a channel member, click the link in the description. Channel memberships are also a great blessing to my life. And before you click off, make sure you watch one of these videos. I hope and I pray that they will continue to be an encouragement to you. God bless you.